Hey guys, I recently went to a competition where I got to try a whole bunch of cubes, and I have to say that my favorites out of all of them were the Weilong GTS, Gans Air, and the Valk. If you don't want to watch the whole video and you don't think you're ever going to be able to try all three of them, then I'm going to say get the Valk, just because I think it was really easy to get used to. I was able to do an average on it on my first try and do really well. Meanwhile, the Gans Air took a lot more time to get used to. The Weilong GTS not so much, but the Valk was definitely the easiest to get used to, and I don't see how anyone would ever not like this cube. It is very popular, and I see it generally gets very good reviews. Alright, so now that I got that out of the way, I'm going to individually talk about each cube and just basically what I think about them. This might not be the most accurate for every single person, but it's just how I feel, and the only reason I'm not talking about any three cubes other than these is just because I happen to have these and they are my favorite cubes. So I'm going to start with the Valk. So the Valk has kind of a hard plastic feeling, and compared to like the Gans, which frankly I feel like they have about the same amount of friction, but the Gans feels a lot softer on the inside, and the GTS feels like it doesn't really have that much friction, so it's hard to tell. So with the Valk, what I mean by the hard plastic feeling is you might feel like it sounds crunchy. I don't know if that's like the right word to use. But that's just how I feel that word should be used. The Valk is definitely less flexible than the Gans with GTS, and whether or not that's a good thing is just a matter of whether or not you think that is a good thing. I personally prefer more flexible cubes, but the advantage of being less flexible is that it is more stable. That would make it harder to lock up when corner cutting, and it would just mean that it's easier to turn, harder to overturn, and stuff like that. So I haven't been practicing with this at all. Just because I've been trying to get used to the Gans so that I could come up with a good idea of whether or not I would like it. But I do say that the Valk is very easy to turn, and I very rarely ever lock up on it. It is super easy to turn. Probably one of the easiest cubes to get used to. So next is the Gans Air. It is extremely quiet, and I know it is lighter than the other two, but it really doesn't make a difference other than the first time you pick it up. Now that I'm used to it, it just I feel like it doesn't really change anything about the cube. One thing that's really good about it is how quiet it is, just because I've been using the Weilong GTS, which is extremely loud. So not just loud, but it's also higher pitched, which makes it more annoying to listen to. So that could be an advantage if you like cubing in class, like doing slow F2L. I very rarely have anyone even hear me doing it. You could also use it on the bus or cubing at night when people tend to get annoyed at you. It is very flexible and relatively fast. I wouldn't say it's as fast as the Weilong GTS, but it does turn a lot more smoothly. So the Weilong GTS is more of a clicky feel, and the Gans Air has a very smooth and quiet feel. You can adjust the springs inside to change the amount of internal friction. So right now I'm using the yellow springs. It comes with, I think, the white springs or clear springs. You can also change it a lot, but I feel like the yellow, white, and green are probably the best. Maybe not even green. I'm pretty sure most people use white or yellow. You can experiment with them, but then it's not that much of a customization tool, just because I find that a lot of them are unreasonably tight or unreasonably loose. So when I first started using this cube, I did find that it started locking up a lot, and it was really hard to turn. So here I have another Gans Air that I find that I was locking up a lot, and the layers seem to misalign a lot, and it was just locking up a lot more than I thought it would. And something like the GTS, which basically felt like it didn't have any friction at all compared to the Gans Air, which suddenly became really hard to turn, just because stuff like this was harder to corner cut than on the GTS, where it always corner cuts really easily no matter how much I'm trying to corner cut. So that required a lot of messing around with the tensions to make sure that it would be not just able to corner cut this much, but make it easy to corner cut. So this one is one that I have not really messed with the tensions, and the one I'm using here, which is the one I'm considering to be my main, has very good tensions that make the corner cutting as easy as it is on the GTS and the Valk. So you do have to make sure you get the tensions really accurate to make sure that the corner cuts are more easy than it is when it's out of the box. Otherwise, you may find your experience with it is not very good. And lastly, the Weilong GTS, which is definitely the fastest of these two, but also the loudest. I didn't realize how loud it was and how annoying it was until I had tried the Gans Air, which was extremely quiet compared to this. That's not to say it's unreasonably loud, it's just that once you get used to the Gans Air, it is, you kind of realize how loud it is. So it's not just that it's much louder, but also it's much higher pitch, which is just makes it more annoying to listen to. So my favorite thing about this cube and what made it my main for so long and why I kind of hesitate to switch off of it is that it's really, really effortless to turn. I feel like it doesn't take any force to turn, even when I'm doing a lot of corner cutting. The corner cutting seems to come as effortless no matter how much I cut compared to, say, the Valk or the Gans, especially the Valk. I find that the best thing about this compared to the Valk is that the corner cutting is always really, really easy as long as you get the tensions right. Obviously, we're not cutting 45 degrees all the time, but it still cuts it with almost no force. But then really what I'm looking for is when I have to cut almost line to line, so a few millimeters off line to line, which is where I feel that you would most often be corner cutting during a solve, and this just takes absolutely the same amount of force as any regular turn. And then there would be times where it kind of seems to slow down and I just put lube in it again, and then it becomes really, really fast. And what I like about it being fast is that you don't have to apply much force and you can just relax as you turn, which makes it a lot easier to not mess up when you're under pressure. Compared to if you had to apply more force, at least in my opinion, I just feel like it's easier to mess up in that case. As for the internal feeling, it feels like there's really not any friction, and I haven't lubed this in a while, but it still feels absolutely amazing internally compared to like the Valk, which you can kind of hear the friction. And this one, the Gans definitely has a lot of friction. It's just like the friction you don't feel it as much because it's super smooth. You can kind of feel that it's there, but you feel like it doesn't really affect anything. And then for the Weilong GTS, you just feel like there's not really any friction at all. However, there is one problem with the Weilong GTS that I find is that since it's so fast, if you do overturn or turn inaccurately, normally the corner cutting will save you. However, there's one part where it won't, and that's when you're applying force inward and pulling down, doing a reverse corner cut at the same time. And that's when it starts to catch the corner on the centerpiece. I'm not exactly sure what causes the catching, but that's not important. The point is that it catches, and that's something that I find a bit annoying. So when I'm doing algorithms that go really, really fast, normally I'm okay, but sometimes during turns where that starts to happen and I'm turning with a weaker finger, like a reverse ring finger turn, then that catch really starts to matter. Now, if you're wondering about the stock sticker shades, the Gans and the Valk right now have their regular sticker shades, and I put half brights plus regular yellow on my Weilong GTS, and that's why there's such a contrast between red and orange here, but not really here. They look kind of similar. So in case you were wondering if the sticker shades are just better on the GTS, they're not. They're pretty much all the same. I just put my own on here because it was my main. Here I'm just going to be doing one solve with each of the cubes. It was just hand scrambled, and I was looking through the camera, so my look ahead got kind of messed up at some points, and my fingers were cold, so I don't blame the lockups on any of the cubes. I just hope that you can see kind of how each of the cubes might feel based on my solves here. I know that that's not a lot of information, just me solving, but then again, that's as much as I can do in a review video. So again, just to summarize some points I made in the video, the Weilong GTS is definitely the fastest one, but it also flexes a little bit more often than I'd like it to. The Valk is the most stable and consistent and easiest one to get used to, and the Gans is sort of in between depending on which springs you use. It definitely is as flexible as the GTS without losing any of its control factor, but it is also a little bit slower than the GTS, but it is more stable in my opinion. So please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.